The world feels darker, quieter, and heavier. In just a few weeks, we've seen senseless violence in our cities, school, and church shootings and political attacks. Violence solves nothing, but it leaves a mark. This is Outspoken. We don't whisper, we don't tiptoe, we speak the truth. Even when the world hates it. I'm Jay. Welcome back.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe. In times like these, we have to ask, why do people let anger, fear, and hate drive their action? Today we're talking about a man whose convictions inspired admiration and hatred so fierce it cost him his life.
They thought killing him would silence the problem, but it wasn't his debate on campus, in churches, or even Cambridge that defined him. It was his belief in something greater than himself. That belief sparked a movement.
That movement was rooted in Christianity. The man was Charlie Kirk. Not just a political speaker, not just a voice that stirred a generation, a Christian brother who lived boldly for truth.
He reminded us to be salt and light. Salt preserves truth in the world rotting with lies. Light exposes darkness. That was his mission, and now it falls to us.
Charlie never hated people. He hated sin. And because he stood against it, the world came after him. But he never wavered.
The torch passed to us now. Speak boldly, stand firm, live without compromise, and shine in a world desperate for truth.
This is the torch Charlie carried, and now, by God's grace, it burns in our hands. Welcome to Outspoken.
All right, well, welcome back to the show. Listen, guys, before we get started, make sure and smash that like button, subscribe to Outspoken, share the show with everyone you know, and hit that bell icon to get updated when we upload new episodes. Recently, one man's name has really stirred a nation, Mr. Charlie Kirk. We've all seen the difference that the nation can come to a conclusion when it's on the conservative side of things, right? The Christian-based side of things. Mm-hmm. I saw so many little memes and things and videos and stuff in the last week, 2 weeks, going on 3 weeks now, right?
Yeah.
Of people saying, we're not the same. That's really hit me, we're not the same. Because there's been some instances, and I know George Floyd's one of the things that was brought up at one time, but then you have a comparison next to what happened with Charlie Kirk. Now, not that one man's life means more than the other at all. Every life has the same meaning and everything.
Well, in our eyes as Christians, their value is the same. I feel
Correct.
like some have done more than others to attribute to who they are as an individual based
Absolutely.
on our belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have these two different men, and there was two different outcomes of after their passing. Whether, let's take it away for a minute from either one of them having a violent ending, right? It's just their lives in general coming to an end, and the difference of reaction there was with the conservative side and the liberal side of media and of the individuals that followed those people. That's a huge contrast, and it really shows everything that's been going on lately. We just had that shooting in
in Michigan. Yeah.
So we had the shooting in Michigan at the Mormon church, and then
LDS.
the LDS church, and then
it burned down.
Yeah,
man, so and that's horrible in itself, because I think one of their biggest fights as Christians, and I hate to put it this way, but it's almost like our own race. Like one of our biggest fights as a Mexican is always against other Mexicans. Same with blacks, same with whites.
Right.
So we could let's narrow that down even more. Some of our biggest fights when we were younger is with our own brothers and sisters, right? We always be fighting.
The people closest to you, absolutely.
Correct. Christianity is the same thing. We're always bumping heads with each other because of our doctrine or what our beliefs are, different things in that aspect. LDS, Latter-day Saints, they're still considered Christians. Their beliefs might be different because we don't believe in added doctrine to the Bible, because we believe the Bible is the ultimate writings and scriptures of God's word. However, we don't let that interfere with the fact that we love our fellow Christians, right? We love our fellow man. We look at them, and not to stir away from the conversation about Charlie, because that's important. The fact is that we are under attack. We know what the events that are happening in Africa with the Christians over there and the genocide that's happening, right? That they're trying to eradicate all the Christians. I feel like, honestly, bro, I don't even want to talk about all the negativity that's come up after Charlie's assassination, because it is sickening, and I'm not going to further that by giving it any time. I get what you're saying, and I think all of society right now, and here's the thing, man, Charlie, he hit that heart chord to people in not just America, but in other nations. There was moments of silence everywhere across the world for Charlie Kirk, right?
Yeah,
because
all around the globe.
And that speaks, because, again, we're not speaking speaking about Charlie Kirk, the politician or the conservative. We're speaking Charlie Kirk, the son of God, right? He brought a lot of. We are not the same, because when this happened, people didn't go destroy their own communities. They didn't set fires. They didn't riot. They didn't kill anybody. None of that stuff happened. Is anyone surprised? Absolutely not. We as true conservatives, now, is there crazy right people? Yes, they are. Just like there's crazy left people. True conservatives, we took that moment to really celebrate his life, to go back and think like, you know what, let's go back and there's a lot of things now. There's a lot of videos that I've never even seen. Like the guy I realized based on some of the things I saw, the guy was a Star Wars geek. So, points for him there, right?
Points right there.
Yeah.
You thought you liked him before.
Yeah, I love him now. Unfortunately, that sticker was what I think was on a Ford. So, he gets negative points for that.
Yeah, negative.
But you're absolutely right when you say we are not the same, because how we handle things is not with violence. And that goes across the board. No one should handle things with violence. You and I we joke about things as, we're 2A lovers. We love to go out shooting. We love to go do things. We just like having them. But in no means do we have them to take someone's life away. We have them to protect ourselves and our rights that were given to us by God and, of course, supported by the Constitution. You're absolutely right. We're not the same because we value life. We value property. We value core values that we were raised on. The whole point of this whole thing. And when that happened, it's just this movement was humongous. His, of course, memorial or his celebration of life was hosted here in our state of Arizona in the Sorry Birds Stadium. The Turd Bird Stadium. Well, I know you were working, but I was being lazy and watching that. And it was amazing to see how many people came out. And look, man, people are going to say, well, those politicians, they're probably using the platform. Great for them. You know what? Use the platform. But here's the thing people don't understand. While they're using the platform, God was using them to spread his word, right?
That's right.
And so I'm like, you lose still. Because God won. And I think that was important because, I've never seen, and I guarantee you, there's a lot of people that we follow on social media that are in the LGBT community, that are non-religious, but they were there and they were praising God. Like there was so much difference. What a contrast when you look at events from what happened in Minneapolis, Portland, Washington, all these places, and what happened when this happened. Total contrast. I think that makes me happy, not because we were right, you guys suck, right? Not because of that. I think it makes me happy because I feel like I'm in the right place where I need to be. Not so much Republican. I believe in the Republican government, like the one we have, little r, not the big R, not the party. Correct. But I'm again, conservative in my way of life. And I think that now that kind of reaffirms that people are not that way, and it's sickening again to see the responses on social media. But then I'm also proud of the people who are still on the conservative side or even Christianity, and they don't keep pushing those buttons. They just leave it alone because you know what's happening? Karma's coming back to them. They're all getting fired. They're all getting exposed. And if you're going to go out there and start announcing things, you got to be careful. Again, just coming back to what you said, you're 100% right. I agree with you 100%. We are not the same. I'm so proud of the Christians out there in the conservative movement that we didn't follow suit like everybody else does or expected us to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the things that Joe said right now, he said we're little r, not a big R. The reason we are Republicans, this is the only reason, is because they are the closest aligned to our belief system. That's it. We don't agree with a lot of the stuff in the Republican Party, right? And especially the Republicans, the actual people that are in there. Please understand that, we have open minds on a lot of the things and we don't follow people blindly. Correct. Right? And that's a big thing in both parties, both the major parties. And then you have, some of your sub parties and stuff, that there's never going to be that one person that is going to be the end all be all for any political system. You have to get with the individual and the party that closest resembles the things that reflect your life the best. I think that's why we've seen such a resurgence in folks. You can see the switch that's happening because people are realizing that this was not cool, man. Listen, people pass away every day, right? And horrible things happen to people, let's say in Chicago, and some young kid gets shot. And you see his name on the news, which you don't because they won't show it because it doesn't fit a narrative. That happens, that kid gets shot, and you happen to see it on the news. You, in your heart, you might go, oh man, that really sucks that happened to that person. And that's about as far as it goes because you don't know them. You really don't know their story. You don't know what happened here or there. And that's okay. If a family member of yours passes away, it hurts a lot worse than somebody halfway across the country that you have nothing to do with. That's the way I would have expected this whole thing to have turned out with Charlie Kirk. And if you didn't like him, you didn't agree with him, and you don't really follow him or know who he is, it's cool if you were like, oh, that sucks, the guy got killed, but I don't I don't really know much about him or anything. The fact that people, and again, like Joe said, we don't even want to give clout to anybody, but anybody that would celebrate anybody's death, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Let's say something horrible happened to him. As conservatives, right, we really don't like that guy or believe in the communist dictator system over there. If he was murdered or something like that, I wouldn't jump for joy or put all
Celebrate.
kinds of stuff.
Celebrate it.
Heck no,
Yeah.
man. That's not cool. That's not the way we should be in life.
Well,
Anyhow,
that speaks volumes about you. You know what I mean? If you're out there celebrating someone's unfortunate demise,
right?
It speaks volumes about you as an individual. And I personally would not want to be around someone who celebrates the demise of someone else, or even just like poking fun of people that are homeless or have handicaps or things like that. We joke. You and I share memes that are kind of funny, right? And most of them are about my dreadful Cowboys or some other things.
It's all lighthearted stuff, right?
Correct. I feel that you and I would be the first ones to defend anyone that is in a protected class because that is our nature.
Absolutely. You remember, and I'm not going to say his name, but a guy that was in high school that had disability, right?
Oh,
Where he had to use the arm braces and stuff like that. And we would even mess with him sometimes, us personally, right? We would mess with him, but we loved him. And if somebody would have said anything to him, like from another school or anything, we would have beat them down.
Oh yeah, man.
You know,
we would have gone straight crazy on him because we
would have went Cobra Kai on him, boys.
But you know what? That's the thing. We never joked with him about his disabilities. We joked about like it was good because he'd laugh
come on,
about
man,
it.
hurry up, run, come on, let's go.
And he enjoyed it. He loved it. Made him part of everybody else. I mean, come on, man. I was like the shortest lineman in high school, so now trust me, I got a lot of jokes, but like inch high and stuff. It was all right. We joked about it, and it's not offensive. Going back to Charlie Kirk, I think one of the things that people don't understand is yes, he went to debate students. We call them debates. Charlie looked at them as opportunities, conversations to have. And one of his biggest things was that when we stop communicating, that's when hate begins. That's when violence begins.
Right.
We assume things. We're not prepared to accept someone's counteract of what we believe in. Like if as me as a Christian, I see someone that's a Muslim, right away, I'm going to assume, he wants women covered with their eyes just barely exposed. They hate me and they're probably strapped with a bomb. That's not our belief at all. And it's rude for someone to think that, but that's the mentality that's out there. That's the belief system. And Charlie wanted to kind of end that. He's like, look, man, 2 hours. You got 2-3 hours with me. Come ask me anything. I will debate you or ask questions and I will tell you. But what he battled was the fact that and he was straight about it. This is what I believe. And this is why I believe it. The majority of it was rooted in Christianity. For example, the big one, abortion. That was a big one for Charlie. That was his big thing. And of course, you're going to have these college students who, because Charlie didn't have a degree, they thought they were smarter than him. Their biggest thing is like, he was very clear to him, and according to science, because this is a proven fact, life begins at conception. When the little sperm meets the egg, we already know what happens. You know how we get to that point, little boys and girls. That's when life begins.
If we have to explain that, you're watching the wrong show.
Absolutely. And it's incredible because, people say, well, no, it's not. It's a clump of cells. Well, we're a clump of cells. We're outside the womb. So Charlie would make a lot of good points. For example, he would bring up Psalm 139.
Psalm 139, 13 through 16.
There you go. Where he said, you knit me together in my mother's womb, right? There's more to it, but that was the gist of it. We as Christians believe that. Like, we are alive at that moment because we're forming. God is forming us in there. Our little spines, our nerves, everything's happening. Even when you come out of the womb, you're still developing. You're still growing. You're still expanding. There's still things happening. One of the biggest things.
So that was another Bible verse was Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And that was a really important, because God already knows us before we're even of this earth, when we're just first being formed.
Charlie made that as one of his things. And of course, everyone wanted to battle him. It was like, my body, my choice, blah, blah, blah. And he agreed. Yes, it's your body. It's your choice. However, that body that's being formed inside is not your body. It's not yours, right? And his point was, it doesn't have your DNA. It has mom's and dad's DNA, which creates a new DNA. And that was his argument. And it was funny to see because, working in law enforcement for so long, and you even knowing, they always had this belief that, well, it's just a fetus, a clump of cell, blah, blah. One of his points he always brought up is like, okay, so let's say someone murders that mom that's pregnant. Why are they charged as a double homicide?
Right.
You have to be a human. You have to be with life to be considered having been removed from that life, said life, correct? Even though they're still in the womb, they're still being charged with that homicide. They, of course, they had nothing to come back to with that.
Yeah, and here's one, and this I only saw this in one school deal that he did, and he had said something to the effect of, so if you kill a dog, right, is it considered murder? And they said, well, no, but you can go to jail. Yeah, you can go to jail, but it's not considered murder because a dog isn't it's not a human being. So
Correct.
he said, why would it be that you get, number one, a double homicide, and two, that is considered murder of a human being.
Yeah.
It's not a zygote, clump of cells or anything. It's actually a forming human being. All of these examples, really go back to the whole thing of it's a human life that is being formed inside somebody's body. And here's my biggest thing to it. And this is why Charlie used to say that I'm going to argue with you based on scientific and human principles, right? Yes, my belief system is because I believe in the Bible and I believe in God and everything, but I'm going to argue everything non-biblical to you. If it is murder to kill a human being that has another human being inside of them, and that's two murders, then that's a law that has been created, right? So a lot of the problem with this issue is that at what point are you guys willing to say it's a cutoff? And that's the problem. They're not willing to make a cutoff. We're not really willing either. But if they said it was 6 weeks or something like that, and they said that's what we're going to put into law, they don't want to put that. They want to allow it to 9 months, right? So we don't want to allow it to even 1 week. But the thing is, if they came up with some kind of law or something and said 6 weeks or whatever, then that's the law, right? That's where it would be at, where they decide, scientists have decided, okay, there's no heartbeat yet or whatever criteria they would make it upon.
Right.
The whole thing behind it is, if you go back to the biblical side of it, you shouldn't be doing that in the first place. It's very easy for people to not have kids out of wedlock, to not have unwanted kids. It's very easy nowadays. If you go back far enough in time, wasn't that easy. You go back to the 1800s, there wasn't things like condoms, there wasn't contraceptives, birth control, and all these kind of things.
Well, back then there wasn't really. We didn't look at it as a restriction. The whole point was multiply, right? Have as many kids as you want.
Absolutely, and it was actually a privilege to have children. You were actually looked down upon if you didn't have kids. Or for women or men especially, it was almost shameful if you weren't able to reproduce.
No.
Like kings and stuff like that, they would, if their wife...
Their heirs.
Yeah, if a king couldn't reproduce, or if his queen or whatever, his wife couldn't reproduce, he would sleep with somebody else, right?
Off with their head.
And all they were for was to give him a child. That was it.
Correct.
Everything has changed so much. Right now, we're at a deficit on having children in the United States. Gen Z.
But that's the point. This leads right into the next subject matter of Charlie, which is why he didn't believe in institutions, educational institutions, is because they're feeding them this nonsense, because almost every institution has gone progressively left. Because why? Their biggest donors are the Soros of the world, and so their curriculum is kind of crazy, bro. I think recently I sent you a video about all these girls celebrating their graduation on their liberal arts degree, and there was stuff that I've never even heard of. LGBT stuff. It was just ridiculous things, and I'm like, where are you applying that at?
Right.
So
where are you going to get a job that utilizes that at all?
Right.
Yeah.
Like LGBT impacts in New Guinea. Like, who cares? Really no one that's interested in that. But that's the point. That was the whole point that Charlie was talking about. Like, look, man, you could spend the next 4 to 6 years in a university learning gibberish, or you could go straight out to the workforce, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to a university to make money. That's what you're going to get, an education and make some money. You could spend 4 to 6 years in a university going into debt, or you could get out there in the workforce where you have blue collar workers in demand all the time making great money, right? You got electricians, you got plumbers, you got iron workers, you got carpenters. It's a vast community of money making out there, because we are this type of society and we need people like that. And so that was his biggest thing, because the information, the education that we're getting was pointless. And the biggest thing about it is that they've gone away from family, they've gone away from children, they've gone away from religion, they've gone away from all those things. You can't get religion unless you go into some kind of theological school that's out there. You're not going to get it at UC Irvine. You're not going to get it at USC or U of A or any of these places. You're only going to be able to get it at a private school that's religious based. Everything he talked about, family. The biggest thing was, hey guys, hey young kids, get out there, get married, have kids you can't afford, and get a job.
Right.
The point of that was, and this is my feeling, the point of that is, if you have good values, good moral values based on Christianity, You're going to do whatever it takes to raise that family. One, you're going to get married, do it the right way. Two, you're going to have children. And because you have core values, those values are going to be put on those children. And you're going to start to create a society that's going to go back to more of a Christian-based fundamental, how this country was founded, and less of one that's just in chaos. Because that's where we're at this point. We're living in just some crazy chaotic multiverse, like, so I wake up sometimes and read the news and I'm like, is that happening here? Or is that like an MCU thing? Is that a new movie coming out? Or
Right.
is this really the society that I'm living today? And it just makes zero sense to me. People have lost
I agree.
common sense. Right. And that's something that Charlie would call you out on. I don't know if you ever saw the debates he had at Cambridge when he went out there.
Yeah.
Just how ridiculous.
Yeah.
They thought they won. They actually thought they won these battles.
And these are supposed to be
highly intellectual children.
I mean, top 10 school in the world kind
Correct.
of thing, right? I mean,
yeah. And their views were idiotic. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're going to be a doctor? You're going to be a lawyer? And this is where your core values are? I worry about my kids' kids. My kids kind of still grew up as a millennials. They grew up around Gen X dad. Right? A little heavy-handed. They still have those Gen X values. They've kind of lived their life and saw the stuff that we were talking about, like, oh my God, dad was right, But of course, like my daughter, she's more in the Gen Zers than millennials, but she grew up around her brothers who were millennials, but still, she makes her husband, I could say that now. Her husband is is more conservative than anything. God is watching over us. Thank you, baby Jesus.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it's so funny because like I'll say something and she'll like, Dad, don't make me cancel you. I'm like, shut up with your cancel. Cancel nobody, But that's the point that Charlie really brought was like he wanted people to use common sense, like be smart about it. Don't feed into what these universities are feeding you. Do your own research and go out there to the real world. My fear today, and I would assume it's yours and everyone else, is that these kids that are in our universities right now will not be prepared for the real world.
That's correct. Well, if you think about it for a while, man, people have not been being prepared for the real world in schools because they have been coddled so much and they haven't been taught. It's not going to be easy out there. Your boss is probably going to yell at you. You're probably going to get written up for coming to work late and those kind of things. And they don't understand that when they get in the workforce. That's why right now across the country, our employer, every employer is having problems with what? Getting people hired, right? Keeping them on board, because where you work, they onboard people, and especially the young ones. What do they do? After we just came through summer here in the Phoenix area, right? Same thing with us, drivers and stuff like that. It's hot and they're like, I'm done with this. I can't deal with it. Jobs that they have to get up really early, all these kind of things. Oh, I don't have time with my friends and stuff. And that's the big difference. And
did you ever see that video real quick? Sorry to interrupt. Did you ever see that video where that girl's crying because she had to work like 8 full hours in the back room? I think it was a Starbucks.
Yeah.
I had to work 8 hours. I'm like, welcome to grown up.
8 hours, man.
I'm like,
wow. There was many years there. I wish I only worked 8 hours a day, So one of the big things that came up out of this right after the assassination was the whole debate on guns came up out of that. And, he talked about it and he even said that, some people are going to have to possibly pass away or whatever to keep freedom. And his meaning behind that whole thing was throughout time, we have had, and who was it that said, the blood of patriots is what it's going to take to keep freedom alive and all that.
Yeah.
And it's a true statement. Now, here's the thing I have a problem with the whole gun debate deal. Well, let's get common sense gun laws. Gun laws aren't common sense. Common sense is kids before 1990 in the late 80s and then going way, way back. And I know you remember this, brother. There used to be organizations in schools called ROTC.
Oh, yeah.
And do you remember? I remember when we were in 8th grade, because we went to that's where we first met and we were at the same school. And I remember in particular, a guy that I had in math class, and he was in ROTC, and he had an M1 Garand.
The rifles.
Now,
yeah.
So, for those of you out there that don't know what that is, that's a pretty substantial rifle.
Yeah.
And they carried those to school, right? And if you go far enough back, you would be in the suburbs of Chicago and stuff like that, where these kids, and especially so you had inner cities, right? So it still was a bunch of black kids, let's say. And they would walk down the street with rifles on their back going to school. Why is it that back then kids were, I remember being our first year in high school, there were still gun racks in the back of trucks, right? Guys had
kids would still take their shotguns. They'd go hunting right after school.
Yeah.
They'd go, especially if you live, out in the boondocks.
Yeah.
It was. I used to see that growing up.
Almost everybody had a 22 rifle on them, and some people had shotguns and stuff like that. So why is it? Why is it? No. I remember when I was a kid, I don't ever remember knocking on my grandparents' door ever.
Yeah.
I would just walk up, grab the doorknob, and walk right in. And it was always open because they didn't worry about that kind of stuff, right? So why is it? This is my question to all the people that are like, no, it's the guns' fault, it's this and that. Why is it then when we were in high school, just 10 years ago, no, just kidding, back in the 80s, right? Edging on 1990, right? So in the 80s, we were in school, and before that, kids took guns to school and had guns in school, and we didn't have all this stuff. So this tells me that it wasn't the weapon being there, because it's the same thing. Weapons are, so in I want to say it was 93. I'd have to look it up again. So you guys research me, don't hold me to it on that exact date. But I think in 93, there was a bill passed that was basically no guns in schools anymore. So now ROTC has just fake guns, kind of like
the drill, the drill team.
Yeah, band and color guard. They have the rifle team. They're just chunks of wood that are shaped like a rifle, right? Kind of the same concept. So now they're not even allowed in school anymore. So why is it now that they're not allowed in school that we have that much more of an issue with it? So it's one of those things for everybody to kind of ponder on. It is not the actual weapon that is the issue. It's the mentality of the people that hold it. And that's where our problem's getting.
I'm over the whole gun debate, bro. I really am. People are just naive about it. And
well, it's never been about the guns. It's always been about the mentality of people.
Well, you and I know that. You and I see that. Even now, with what happened with Charlie, I still will defend weapons, And
absolutely. If he would have got shot and he wouldn't have passed away, he would still defend it afterwards.
Yeah. But here's 100%. The thing. And this is just a soundbite for the left, that they really want to just like guns. The reality of things is this is where I feel we're lacking as a society. We've gone away from being responsible gun owners to I know at an early age I taught my kids the safety of guns. Don't touch them unless I'm with you. There was never an accident. I always had guns in my house, and there was never an accident with my children. They knew better. We'd go out shooting, so they knew what they caused and what they did and how they sounded and how to handle them. They knew you ever pointed that weapon on somebody, you're going to get your ass kicked. They knew that. We've gone away from that. People now just have them and they want to keep them. And to me, that's a major thing. Secondly is you could remove all the guns in the world, all of them. We're still not looking at the mental health aspect of it.
Right.
So these people are still going to find other ways. For example, the mass shooting in Michigan that just happened, he not only rammed the building and shot 10 individuals, and I think 2 or 3 have died. He had bombs, bro. He set it on fire.
Yeah.
And so there's more
he
to
had an IED in the truck.
Yeah. There's more to it than just a gun.
Right.
They're going to find a way. The more restricted you get, the more they're going to find a way to get around it. It's not the guns. We have to focus on the core problem behind it. Just like vehicular manslaughter because of a DUI. It's not the car. It's the driver.
It was the alcohol. It was the alcohol.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. But here's the thing. We have too powerful of lobbyists for the alcohol companies, for the car companies, for all them, that they're not going to say, you're not going to have one senator, one representative say, oh, we need to look at cars now as a danger because they're killing people. They're going to dude, shut your mouth. We're funding your reelection.
Your campaign. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're not going to talk about that as being a dangerous thing because it doesn't. But guns, you know what? NRA is not paying that much. They're like, whatever. And they're not paying the lefties because the lefties, all of a sudden they want to stand on something. What they should stand on are core values. What they should stand on is the Christianity and the fact that right now Christians are being persecuted more than any other religion because they don't dare speak about Islam because they know there'll be repercussions, right? But Christians, you know what? They're loving people. Just kill them. Why aren't they standing on that? Why aren't they standing on violence? Instead, you have people like the governor of California, Newsom, that continues with his rhetoric on his social media and everywhere, calling out, the Republicans and they're crazy, they're this, they're that. When is that going to stop? At what point are you going to say, you know what? I'm a governor, great state of California. Maybe I should watch what I say because people are listening to me. Maybe I should maybe have a little bit more decorum when I speak. maybe a little bit more professional. The guy's been fighting homelessness since like 2008 and it's done nothing. It's gotten worse. So, but you want to focus on calling someone a Nazi or calling someone some stupid name. That's clearly the guys that have mental health issues are going to pick up on. Is like, well, Big Daddy Newsom, I got you. I'm going to go take care of that. I'm going to eradicate that for you, Big Daddy. They're not doing their jobs, man. And to me, I think both sides. And I'm going to tell you right now, does Trump do it? Yes. Do I like it? Nope. I wish he'd stop doing that crap too and stop saying, well, I hate my enemies. Be the bigger person. He'll tell you, well, I'm sorry, man. Charlie's probably mad at me right now because I'm hateful. That's not good for our society. That points to you and I and the most of the conservative religious people is that, look, we don't agree with a lot of things Trump does or says, but at the core of it, he protects a lot of our values. And that's what I like. I tell you right now, if the Republican Party started losing those values and it started going shifting back to lefties, I'm going to have to reconsider, because I don't base my politics on my feelings. I base them on my beliefs in God. And that's where my core value is in my Christianity. And that's where Charlie's was. Everything he
100%.
Everything he talked about, everything he brought up was rooted in his Christian belief, right? The guy was not perfect. Heaven forbid, because that's another thing we heard. Oh, you guys are worshiping him like a god. No, we're not. There's a big difference between worshiping and holding him in reverence, because the guy did a great job in bringing people to Christianity, to opening the eyes, especially the young kids. I've never seen such an increase in young people going back to church, right? And to me, God worked through Charlie to do that. That's what he does with Christians. He works through them, right?
What did our pastor say on Sunday? That Gen Z, or one of our pastors did, and he said Gen Z is now the largest group of people going to church. So the young kids, not the youngest, because that's Gen Alpha, right? The one after them.
I already know, bro.
Yeah, I know. I've given up at this point. So I've said this, and I'd have to rewind and go back to one of our earliest episodes. I called it and believe that Gen Z, they're either going to make it or break it for the United States. Truly, they're going to be the ones that change it, because it's every generation skips, right? So it's the next generation kind of thing. Yeah.
It's a revival, brother. It's a revival.
It is.
And look, man, you got to give reverence to where it needs to go. And Charlie Kirk, a lot of people didn't like him. A lot of people made up lies about him. Whatever the case is, his belief in God and Jesus Christ were first and foremost, right? One of the things he said was he wanted to be remembered for his courage, for his faith. That's something big. That's something that you don't hear people. None of those people that spoke, and I'm talking the political side and the big R's, at his service, none of those people, for the most part, because, the Secretary of War has spoken about God. Trump has spoken about God. Marco Rubio, oh my God.
Yeah, it was amazing.
He better be going as vice president. You know what I mean? With J.D. Vance. That man, what he said, I thought I was back in the South Texas, listening to a Baptist preacher. You know what I mean?
Was awesome.
He did a great job, and that's the key, Jay. And that's what people don't see. People may call that hypocrisy. People may say all these other things, but God doesn't see that. God sees the work that they're doing, and whether he's using somebody, whether in a good or in bad. Charlie's assassination was a bad thing. But even in those bad moments, look what he started. Look what happened, right? Something good. God's always working for the betterment of humanity, for God and for Jesus Christ. And that's what he did. And he brought people closer to each other, right? And closer to him, right? So, and I think that's important. So I just want to leave on that I think the movement that Charlie created, I hope and I pray that it continues moving forward. I would like to see more of the TP USA faith going out there. I would love to see, how he has those little chapters in the colleges and now in high schools. I would like to see chapters like that in churches now. You could bring people together and enlighten them, because you know what his second biggest thing is, that he wanted to get people involved, because the only way we could change how we think, the only way we could make this country better is by getting back to God. And the only way we could do that is putting the right people in position to do so.
Correct.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, first you have to get people into the church, right? So they can learn about Scripture. And then the next thing you have to do is they have to get out there. They have to speak to other people, get them in the church so they can get out there and speak to people. And it's this big circle. The problem is when he was at those schools, most of those people came up already defensive and angrily. And the magic in some of those moments was some of the people that came up with like a note card or their phone or whatever, and they would say, well, I just want to ask you about this because I've heard this about you. And he'd say, no, I mean, we welcome
Give me
you
one
up.
example.
Give me an example. And one of the things that he was really good about, and actually a lot of the conservative content creators that get out there in the world, whether they go to colleges or just these meetups in general, is if you disagree with us, you get to come to the front of the line. So we would rather hear the discourse than we would like to hear compliments and everything.
Correct.
Those are great too. People come up, hey, I love you, this and that. What are you guys doing next? Blah, blah, blah. Can I get a free hat? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
They really wanted to talk to the people that they could get some information to them and help them understand why we have differences. I mean, we have differences because there's different belief systems. How did you acquire that belief system? Well, I acquired that through school and through my parents. Well, this is part of the problem with what's happening. Kind of what we left off on one of our segments here that we were talking about was the family unit, right? And that is so broken now. Imagine you're a kid growing up and you're now at this point, you get to see on video your mom and or dad saying, yeah, we were thinking about aborting this turd that we have now, kind of thing. And it's like, man, you think kids have emotional distress now because of all these worldly things? Imagine your own parents saying that you're useless and, and we didn't really want you and
should have swallowed you.
Oh, man.
What? I'm just saying.
There's so much to be said about that stuff that is sad. And so the breakdown of the family unit has been a big part of it. Yeah. The next thing is the sexuality and everything that's been marketed out there. And that and so many of these things, so the gun violence deal, we already covered that. That increased tenfold during what time? 2020. When COVID hit.
Yep.
All the sexuality stuff, guess when it hit too? 2020. Yeah. So there was so much that happened during that time because kids were locked in their houses.
Too much time in their hands.
All they had was time to be on social media that was misleading them. And they didn't have a good parents still had to work, whether they were working from home, whether they were going to work and stuff. The one good thing I'd say that came out of that was parents started seeing what their kids were learning because they were walking by the screen and seeing what the teachers were telling them on screen and such. And that's what started that revival, right? The parents going to the school board meetings and stuff like that. All the sexual nonsense has really created a mess. And I mean, almost every one of these darn shootings that we've seen in the last months have all been these folks that they've had mental illness based around gender ideologies.
Yeah.
It's really sad. So there's something wrong. If you go back to it, it wasn't the guns that were the problem. We've had a mental shift, right? And what is that mental shift? When did it happen and how did it happen? Through horrible or non-parenting, through school systems and lack of church guidance, because I guarantee you kids that are in church more, and I'm not saying that there isn't terrible people that go to church, right? We've had that in headlines too. What I'm saying is more than not, these kids are going to have a better chance if both parents are there, if they go to church and they go to a normal school that doesn't have all this, basically an indoctrination camp. I'd say the last thing, man, really with Charlie was just the spiritual warfare that was just rampant, right? And that's the thing that he was trying to get past to people, that it's not just about your politics. It's not just about what you're learning in your school. Our spirituality has been just tanked, right?
Right.
We don't, in society, especially in schools and stuff like that, it's actually looked down upon. If you're a Christian, oh my God, there's something wrong with you. You have issues and everything. And the fact that people look at Christianity worse than another religion, any other religion, is beyond me.
Yeah.
We've said this before, say like Buddhists or other religions that are non-Islamic and non-Jewish, right? Any other religion, Christian
spirituality,
types of spirituality. What's the
astrology.
one big common denominator between them? To try to be peaceful. That's it, and love your fellow man, and that's a really big one.
Isn't Islam's there too, right? I mean, you be peaceful or we kill you.
I kill you. Yeah. The Quran has it's got its own set of rules, man. And we don't have enough time in this episode to get into it, but
no, but you're right. There was a lot of spiritual warfare that Charlie was talking about, but and you hit the majority of them, the secular ideologies. One of the things that he really was on was the extreme radical feminism, right? It's how crazy it's gotten. And I know he used to be on podcasts, and one of some things he talked about was like, and women hate that. They're like, you need to help your man. You need to go back to the roots, and I think he was on to something. Nowadays, you hardly know your kids, right? Because you drop them off at a sitter, you pick them up from school, or everyone else does the work for you. He was trying to get back to like, look, man, you guys are a little radical. You guys are way crazy. Like, hey, great, feminism is awesome. Do your thing, be in power, but your family should come first, right? Well, God should come first, then your family, and then your country. His belief was always find core value in God. That brings your family together. And under family, you have to keep your family together. And how do you do that? By interacting, by communicating, by talking, by hearing each other's grievances, whatever the case is, and then doing that creates better people, which in turn creates a better society, right? Which in turn creates a better country for us to be in. That was his whole thing. That, and of course, the crazy gender ideology that castrating our kids, because our own parents, the people that are supposed to be able to protect our children, were encouraging them to do this. Take the drugs. Why? Because they don't want to deal with their kids. They don't want to go through the kids at an early age. They're like, especially girls when they're going into their bodies, they're like, oh my God, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't feel comfortable. Well, of course they don't feel comfortable. They're growing in. They're going through the hormone changes. But instead of helping them, say like, Darling and I went through the same thing and blah, blah, blah. No, they're like, well, how do you feel? Do you feel like maybe you should wear jeans and a baseball cap? That's a tomboy. Still a girl. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the worst people doing it were the parents, man. And of course, the second was those school teachers, right? Spreading their ideology at school, having their safe spaces and saying, giving them pronouns and whatnot. You should worry about defining a pronoun before you're trying to give someone a pronoun. You know what I mean? And because they can't even read, these kids. So,
right.
And again, that goes again. We can't change that in church, right? God can't change that in church. How do we change it? In the public school system with politicians. That was his whole point. Change the people that are in charge, so then we in turn could change into a better society. That's simple, man. Simple math. It's like 1 + 1. But the lefties will see 1 + 1 = 6, right? Why? Because that's how I feel. I feel like that 1 should be a 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
Crazy. So whatever.
Yeah, it's a lack of self accountability and responsibility. It wasn't my fault that I shot that person. It was the gun's fault. It wasn't my fault I got pregnant. So I'm
Zero accountability.
So I'm gonna sacrifice this baby at the altar of Satan because I did stupid stuff. It wasn't my fault. It was my feelings. And so I can't be held accountable for this nonsense that I believe and that's been, shoved into my moldable brain over the years.
I felt I had to kill him because I'm black and he's white and I felt threatened. Shut the hell up. You know what I mean? Like, get out.
See, and that narrative, I truly in my heart feel is on its last string. Because the amount of people that are white and of different colors and that are online right now going, man, I'll stand behind you, brother. It's an idealist system, right? So we have 4 different people of 4 different races, 4 different countries, and we all have kind of this same, hey, we're all Christian. We all love each other and everything. I'll stand next to you rather than stand somebody that looks like me that wants to do dirty stuff with kids 100 times over, right? Yeah. And we all really believe that way. So it's a subject we could go over for hours on end. Yeah. And for anybody that's still got a lot of feelings about this, because I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. No, we're right there with you guys. And he was a great person doing something great, but we got to know that he is in a better place now, and he is up there. Well, with that, the world will try to silence you. They will mock you. It will tell you that standing for truth is impossible.
But Charlie showed us it's not impossible. It's necessary. Bold faith, uncompromising truth, a life lived for God and for others.
The mission hasn't ended. The torch hasn't gone out. It burns in each of us now.
So speak boldly, stand firm, shine your light, be the salt in the world that desperately needs it.
This is the torch Charlie carried. And now we carry it in the power of the Spirit, shining his truth into the darkness. Guys, thanks so much for joining us today. Before we get out of here, make sure and smash that like button, subscribe to Outspoken, share the show with everyone you know, and hit the bell icon to get updated when we update new episodes.
That's right, guys. We want you don't want those algorithms from the lefties. You want them from the righties.
That's right.
Small R.
Hit the little bell and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. Small
right, guys,
R.
We'll see you guys next week, man. Have a good one.
Yeah. See you next Tuesday.